Good morning. You're listening to the BLAINESWORLD Show, heard Wednesdays here on WPVM 103.7 on the dial. This is the BLAINESWORLD Show, typically heard Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and you can also watch it on WPVM's Facebook page, where you'll be watching it now. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, in my Zoom studio in Fairview, North Carolina. Each week, we focus on the Asheville theater scene, as well as on positive news and information about people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And today, in the special video edition of BLAINESWORLD Show, I'm glad to be speaking with Julie Kinter and Reagan Mulvey, and they're both from Hart in Waynesville, and they'll be talking about an upcoming show called The Diary of Anne Frank. So welcome aboard, Julie and Reagan, and you can wave to all your fans and friends in Facebook world. So you want to just wave to everybody who's watching? Great. And I should mention that Julie has been active with SART since 2003, continues to fill roles both on and off stage. She began directing at Hart in 2005. And what, Julie, you were 14 then? Was that it? You were like the youngest director they ever had at SART?
Right.
Okay, fantastic. With Sylvia. Oh, one of my favorite all-time plays. I love Sylvia. A lot of fun. And in recent seasons, she's done A Facility for Living, A Christmas Carol, Unnecessary Farce, The Mystery of Irma Vep, All My Sons, and The 39 Steps. The Next Room, or the vibrator play, wow, and Women in War. She became less active in her profession as trauma, ICU, and labor and delivery nurse, and devotes many hours of service to Hart, including bookkeeping and much, much more. She's usually trailed by a rescue pup or two. I love it. Reagan Mulvey, who's going to be playing Anne Frank, is a senior at Tuscaloosa High School. After graduation, she hopes to attend college to obtain a BFA in musical theater. She has studied dance and musical theater at Music Works Studio of Performing Arts since she was 3 years old. She has previously appeared in Hart stage in Haywood's Got Talent, Hello Dolly, and Fiddler on the Roof. And so I'll start this off, Reagan, if I can, with you with the first question. And do you remember the first role you ever did?
I do. I was Molly in a production of Annie Jr. I was very, very dramatic at the time. I still am, but I just got on the stage and I cried a lot, did a little dancing, and I've just done it ever since.
How old were you then?
I was 5.
Okay, now, do you know if your folks or anybody had a copy of that production? Did they ever do a tape of it or filmed it?
I think there's one somewhere lying in a closet. I haven't seen it in a long time, but I see pictures every now and then.
Because I want Julie to keep this in mind, Julie, but I had this great idea for a fundraiser for Hart or for any other theater that picks it up, and that everybody would do their very first production. You know, they don't have to do the whole thing, but they might just do 5 minutes of it. Wouldn't that be cool, Reagan? You would get a chance to bring this role again, see if you handle it differently. Wouldn't that be a fun thing to do, Julie? Just
that could be very interesting.
I always had that idea. So Reagan, keep that in mind. We may ask you to get that video again or rehearse those roles. But I'll ask Julie the first thing too. In terms of theater, when did you first get into theater?
Well, not Hart is really where I got into it. I wasn't in theater in high school or anything. I did some stage music in college. Was in a college rock band and stuff like that, but never acting. So this is where I kind of got the bug. I just kept watching and getting more and more curious, and one thing led to another. When
you were a kid, were you a theater fan?
Yes, my parents took us to a lot of theater, and actually my mom had me enrolled in ballet when I was about 4, and I performed up in New York at the Red Slipper Theater doing Eensy Weensy Spider, and I remember my spider fell off my stick and I cried. That's all I remember.
So you'll have to remember that, Reagan. We're going to get in Julie in this great fundraising thing we'll do. She'll make a comeback as the Eensy Bitsy Spider, so you get a chance to show everybody your beginning in your theatrical debut. So what got you then into, and you started out at Hart doing a lot of different things. Then were you doing acting at Hart as well?
Me?
Did you act?
Not really. I started out doing stage managing. We had a great stage manager there who taught me a lot, Sherry DeWeese.
Oh, sure.
yeah, and I just kept getting more and more curious, and I said something to Steve one day. He was describing actually the play Sylvia, and I just made an offhanded remark, oh, I should direct that play. That sounds like the story of my life. And he was kind of like, okay. And I was sort of taken aback. I talked to him the next day and I said, did you really mean that? Would you let me do that? And so he gave me a chance, and that it took off from there.
Yeah, did
As
you ever
far as
see that play, Reagan? Sylvia?
I haven't. I think I've heard of it before, but I haven't ever seen it.
Oh, it's just such a marvelous play. It's just a phenomenal play. So that was your first play. You just got thrown into it and directed right
Yeah,
for that?
and I did some more, and then another mentor, Suzanne Tinsley, there at the
Sure.
theater, um, is the one that got me hooked or got me started in acting, because she was directing Miracle Worker, and she encouraged me to try out, and then cast me as the mom of Helen Keller, and that was my first role there.
Well, that's right, because I mean, I think I've seen just about a lot of different stuff at Hard. So the question we were talking about off the air, but if you had a preference now to act or direct or do bookkeeping, we'll add that third dimension into it. Do you have a preference?
I find that I throw myself into anything I do. So anything is hard work. So I have to take that out as far as like, oh, is the memorizing of lines hard, or is it all the other things? I do love, I choose to pursue roles that I really want to sink my teeth into. But then when I direct, I sink my teeth into all the elements that come together to make a show. And I think I really enjoy that, particularly a sound plot and a music plot that can enhance the whole experience and ambiance of a show. So I don't know. It's a hard one for me to choose one or the other.
And one of the things you just mentioned, and I want this kind of maybe for Reagan as a recommendation, but you also mentioned you've been a stage manager, and stage managers are so under recognized, I guess you might say, in terms of the role of the stage manager. And could you share just maybe advice not only for Reagan, but for everybody else about being a stage manager? And do you recommend that for just about anybody in theater?
Well, I do, in terms of it gives you an appreciation for a lot of different aspects of theater. It does take somebody who is ultra organized, anticipates the needs of the director, and is I don't know, it is an unsung hero, like you said, kind of role, but it is a critical role. And I think I've always noticed that at the end of a run, cast and crew always give them a lot of accolades for everything they did to hold it all together.
If again, a shout out for the stage manager for Anne Frank. Who's that going to be?
Nicole Sumter.
Okay. Boy, does she do good work too. And, just behind the scenes, but she's a very talented person. Reagan, have you ever been a stage manager yet?
I haven't.
Okay. Keep that in mind, because I hear it's a great thing to people to try out or just see what it entails. At the high school, at other productions you've had, or you've been in high school productions?
My high school doesn't have a theater program, but I do take theater lessons at a dance studio.
Oh, bummer. They don't have a high school. What a shame. Talk a little bit about then the role you have now for Anne Frank. So you were telling me off the air, this is going to be your biggest role you've had so far, right? Anne Frank?
Yes.
For the few people who may not know the show, what's Anne Frank all about?
Yeah, so it's set in Amsterdam during World War II, and Anne and her family have gone into hiding because her sister has gotten called up to go to a work camp, and they're Jewish, so they have to go into hiding sooner than they expected, and it kind of just follows her family and the other people that join them through their experiences. They're there for 2 years, and it's really just moving, and it's a beautiful story.
Now, before you got cast in this role, had you ever, did you know the story or had you ever read it?
Yeah, I first read the diary in sixth grade,
Oh,
and
okay.
I was really attached to it. So that was a big part in why I auditioned too.
Okay. Because now what I'm very excited about, I think Julie told me about this, that you're actually going to be doing the show also for a local high school or a local school
Yes.
as well. What school is that, Julie? Or talk about
Cherokee
that?
High School.
Okay. And what, they're going to come to the theater to see it, or are you going there?
They're driving to us. I think it's about an hour bus ride to come see us, their entire 10th grade, because the social studies teacher had reached out. They're studying Holocaust in 10th grade. And so they wanted to give them this picture of it.
Very exciting. Is that the, I imagine for a lot of the folks, that'll probably be the first time they've ever even seen a show, you know.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. Is that going to be a special show just for that group?
Yeah.
Okay. And talk about then, Reagan, back to doing the show. So this is a big part. Is this perhaps the biggest part you've ever had?
It definitely is, yes.
So talk about how you prepare for the part.
Yeah, so I had a little extra time because we actually had auditions before the pandemic.
Right. I
So I
remember.
had that full extra year to just really research it more and just kind of study it and get myself more prepared for it. So I read the script quite a bit and kind of just got a better feeling for it. So it was actually a little nice to have that extra time. I mean, I definitely didn't enjoy staying at home, but you got to take what you can.
Now, in preparing for it, I always wonder, do actors, for example, see the movie? Have you seen the movie?
I have not seen the movie.
Okay. And I want to get your reaction to that, like either this show or other shows, and I'll ask Julia her reaction. Is that a good or bad idea, do you think, to see the film before, or I guess you want to see it afterward?
Yeah, I think it really depends on that one. I tend to like the stage version a lot better than the movie versions. Um, I think it's kind of, I don't typically watch them before I portray the character because I feel like that can rub off on me and I'll see the role a certain way instead of putting my own spin on it. So, yeah.
Julie, how do you feel about that? About seeing a film before or after?
I agree. I'm the same way. I don't like to get a different I don't want it to taint my approach to it, because usually if I'm reading a character, I want to bring what I can bring to it, not what somebody already did. So
Because I'm trying to think of the movie. Do you remember who was in the movie version?
I know there was a 1959
Right.
movie maybe, and I have not seen it. One of my actors forwarded me a little video clip on YouTube of something that made me aware that there have been, I guess, a couple TV series as well. So I don't even know how many versions are out there. I've just kind of kept away from that.
Another thing that I think is interesting about the show, and as I'm looking at Reagan, you're right now at home, and this is that's your bedroom. You're at, or where are you taping from, Reagan?
Yeah, this is my bedroom.
Right, because I guess it makes you appreciate your bedroom, I guess, as you're doing the show, that where Anne lived was, I guess, slightly, the whole house was, by, I guess, the size of maybe your bedroom or something, where she lived. Does it make you appreciate what you have in terms of where you live?
It definitely does. I'll come home after a rehearsal and I'll go to my room and I'm like, this is nice because, there's those scenes where we're in Anne's bedroom and there's two of us in there and we're just kind of packed in and you're like, this is really small. So I definitely do appreciate it a lot more.
So I'm looking, like I said, at bedroom, and yeah, it looks like a nice bedroom compared to the whole place where a whole bunch of people lived in one spot. And I guess that's, Julie, kind of a challenge for you as a director now, as to how to portray this this house where they lived. I wouldn't call it a house, but where they lived on stage. How are you going to be doing that?
Well, we have set up a 3-tier stage. I really looked at the actual diagram of what the annex looked like, and then of course the script gives you a little bit of although this script didn't give me a whole lot to go on as far as how to set it up, because I've also had to do a lot of changes in direction in terms of, I think it was, my stage is just different from what I think their script was written for. But we do have a common area, because there was that main area where they shared, the Von Dons, the other family, had to share that as their bedroom. And then there is a room that Margot and Anne share that, of course, then Margot gets booted out of because Mr. Dussel, when he joins them, is added. And then I'm kind of combining, in real life, Peter had a room, and then there was an attic above his room, but I've kind of combined those to be an attic space as his room. So there are 3 levels to the stage area.
And the incredible thing is the stage area is a lot bigger, of course, than they had in real life. It's they had a much smaller space for all of them in real life, I imagine. Talk about, yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember there. I know I've read the actual square footage, but I can't remember now. It's, in some ways, it's bigger than I expected. And it's because there's also levels to it. There wasn't just one floor that they had. So, but they were all, I mean, it was a tiny space, all told, each room.
So you're not doing this on the main stage at Hart, is that correct? You're doing it at the other theater?
Correct, in the Fangmeyer.
Yeah. Does that present any challenges for you?
Not, well, we're doing it in a thrust staging, so the seating is kind of 3/4 round, and so it always means making sure that your audiences on the sides don't always see backs of people and things like that. But it does, what I do like is it does bring the audience into the room, so to speak.
Now, because of COVID, there are going to be some restrictions as to people seeing the show.
Yes, we have a mask requirement now, so masks are required to, and we really count on that, because our actors are going to be unmasked to entertain our audiences, and so we would really like our audiences to be masked, because they're going to be really up close and personal. I mean, just about touching toes. So it's not like it's 20 feet away like a proscenium stage, like on the main stage.
And are you cutting back on seating capacity at all?
At this point, we are not. I think it just depends on how things continue to go. But no, not at this point.
Well, also because the Fangmeyer, though, tend to be a little bit more spread out than, the main stage. You have 3 separate areas, I guess. So it'll be a little spread out. In terms of being in the show, Reagan, how contemporary do you feel the show is to now? In other words, even though it's from way back when, do you think it's still relevant today?
I think it most definitely is, especially right now. It, in no way can we ever imagine this type of situation, but the way we were kind of locked inside for a while, it gets you thinking, like, how could they have done this for 2 whole years? And it's crazy, and it really helps you connect to it.
Well, as you're saying, kind of the scary part to me too is connecting to it, that now it's a shame, but there are also lots of people who hate other people. It's just, in my lifetime, I've never seen this, but I don't know if you see it at school, but all of a sudden you have, I guess, I don't know, cliques forming or groups forming, and it's almost like a real, hate kind of thing that's going out there in society. So I think this is real on target, and it ties into, Julie, I guess, in terms of you directing the play. What do you want people to get out of watching this play?
I want them to experience the hope that Anne had. If you see the world through a 13 to 15-year-old's eyes, who is stuck in the worst possible position in her life, yet still seems to be able to find hope for her own life and for others. that there's something we have to hold on to. And I think that has to come from being empathetic and compassionate to everyone, no matter our differences. Can we embrace our differences rather than always holding them against each other or fearing those differences? I think compassion is sorely missing right now. You see it here and there, but it's certainly something that in her young mind, she could still find the good in people. And she was very extraordinary. When you think about what she could have become had her life not been cut short, she probably would have gone on to be a journalist, a great writer, a very insightful writer, because her insight for a young girl is just extraordinary. You don't see that in teenagers today as much. No offense, Reagan.
It has me thinking, you'll know the name, Julie, but it has me thinking of the poet at the inauguration, the woman.
Yeah.
I can see Anne Frank, like you said, being like that. How is it for you, Reagan, playing somebody younger than you are? This is, I guess most times you played older slightly, but this is somebody who's younger than you. Did you have to make any adjustments?
Yeah, there's definitely the normal things. Like I definitely make my voice a little younger. I have a little bit of a baby voice anyway, but just a little bit more energy. I make sure to drink my coffee before I go to rehearsal. But it's really fun actually playing a younger person, and especially one with so much enthusiasm and just joy for life. So it's been really fun.
Well, I've just met you now for the first time, but it looks like you're a pretty enthusiastic person too. Would you say that's true, Julie, too? Also?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's just, I love just seeing you on the air here now. Mm-hmm. And in terms of, if you can, Julie, give a shout out to some of the other folks that people are going to get to see in this show. I think you put together, really a tremendous cast. Talk a little bit about some of the other people in it.
Well, we've got 2 kids that are playing the other 2 young kids in the annex. Peter and Margot are from our Kids at Heart program.
Great.
Our director, Sheila Sumter, does a marvelous job with these kids. So, I mean, I have a 13-year-old playing a 17-year-old, and actually the actress playing Anne's older sister is younger than her in real life.
Okay.
So it's really extraordinary the talent that we have in our region. And then Mr. and Mrs. Frank are the Liebermans, who this is a passion project for them as well. And I think they mostly work in Hendersonville, but they are the parents. And then Peter's parents, Mr. and Mrs. Von Don, are being portrayed by Aaron Green, who I had worked with as a stage manager a few years back when we did Brigadoon. And he was a student, and now he's come back to do some more theater. And the woman playing his wife is a 4th grade teacher in our area. And who else am I missing? Mr. Dussel has done a lot of parts within my shows. David Spivey, he's a really great actor. And then we have two other roles. The people who come in and out of the annex are being played by Randy Robbins and Griselle Gonzalez Juk. So that rounds up the cast pretty much.
Quite a cast. And Reagan, the question is, so in the show you have 2 siblings. In real life, do you have any siblings?
I do. I have an older brother.
Oh, so how does he compare either to the character in Anne Frank or vice versa? Do you see any similarities?
Yeah, they're definitely very different. For instance, in the play, Margot's kind of the calm, collected one, and my brother most definitely is not. But I do see similarities in like their deep, meaningful talks. We have a lot of those in real life too. So
really cool.
It's been really fun having a stage sibling.
How about the parents in the show? How do you feel about the parents? Compare or contrast, if you would. Only say good things about your real parents, of course, but how do the parents come across?
Yeah, the parents in the show, Anne's obviously very, very close with her dad and not so much her mother. It's a little bit the opposite for me. I'm very much a mama's girl, so it's been a little different doing that, but they're great. Anne portrays her mother in a much different light and makes her seem pretty harsh, but she's still kind of a lovable character, so it's been pretty nice.
In terms of the play, Julie, it's almost, as you're talking about it, a shame that, especially for the school production, I guess there won't be time for a talk back. But if ever there was be a great time for a talk back, it's just that they're just coming in for the day and I guess having to write back. But that's a shame because I would think, wouldn't that be fun to have a talk back with this group?
I forgot about talkbacks. That's a great suggestion. I might pass that on and ask them, if the teachers, if they have time, and if our actors have time,
Right.
that would they like us to make time for that?
Even if the actors can, I'm just saying, because again, I'm so excited you're doing this for this local school production, because kids don't see theater, a lot. Even Reagan, as a kid, did you see a lot of theater?
On the TV, but I didn't
Right.
see very much live theater.
And so it's a shame, Reagan. One of the things that all theaters do, including Hart, is trying to get people into theater. So Hart, what you do, I think, is so fine, Julie, where you have the kids program for Hart, but a lot of people have never seen a live show. Reagan. So it's just so exciting. 100 kids will get to see a live show. So that's kind of cool. You had a choice, Julie, in terms of when you come up with work to do at Hart. Did you choose this play, or did the plays choose you to directing it?
Steve seems to match some of the directors to the plays. Sometimes I'll bring a play and say I'd love to direct this, but he asked me to direct this, and I actually said that I would love to. This is really can be rather personal for me too. I'm not Jewish, but my parents are German immigrants, and I grew up listening to all the stories of what it was like for them during the war, what their experiences were, including with their Jewish friends, Jewish business partners, what they had to do. And so this period in time, especially in Europe, has always been kind of a fascination for me. So to be able to and my mom, it was like, you need to read the Diary of Anne Frank when I was very young. I don't remember exactly how old, but I reread it last year because I figured my young mind and my older mind might perceive the whole book differently. But it was a must read in our household. And yeah, so.
Are they still around, you folks?
No, unfortunately, I just lost my mom in 2019. I
Well,
wish that they could be here for
I
this.
would have loved to have seen it. And the question I asked Reagan is, in terms of, as we're winding down here, why should people see this play?
Yeah, I'm sorry, can you repeat
No,
that
I'm sorry.
one?
Why should people see this play?
Yeah, it's I think it's, like we said, it's very important to today's world, and it's easy to connect with. It honestly has all of it. It has some comedy in it, which you wouldn't think it does for such a dark concept, but it really has a lot of fun in it. And the characters are wonderful. They're dynamic, and it's really fun to see them through Anne's eyes. So it's a really, really beautiful show.
And Julie, if you can give some of the specifics, if people want to see it, or when's it going to run, how to get tickets, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so we open on Friday, September 24th, and we will run for 3 weekends. The first weekend is a 3-day weekend of Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but the following 2 weekends run Thursday through Sunday through October 10. And the Sunday shows are always 2:00 matinees. The other shows are all 7:30 evening shows. And you can call our box office for tickets at 828-456-6322, or you can go to hearttheater.org, and it's theater with a TRE at the end.org. There is another, it's not a .com, because there is a Heart Theater somewhere like in Oregon or Washington State that people have accidentally gone to with a .com, but no, we are hearttheater.org, TRE.
Okay, anyway, I'd like to thank you very much for being my guest on the special Facebook Live edition of Blaine's World Show. I look forward to seeing you. Real quickly, a story I have to share, that I was planning to kind of see the, I guess, the final dress rehearsal or something, but I just got the word from my wife. I think she wants to see it, so I'm going to probably have to come on it. She doesn't like night shows, so I'll have to see her on a Sunday afternoon. But I really look forward to seeing you, and I hope you have a tremendous run, and good luck with it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so as Julie and Reagan work their way out of the studio, let me see if I can find our other guests. So we're going to have you guys disappear in a second here. And let's see, we'll get rid of you two folks. Speak to you soon. Well, say goodbye. There you go. And we now have to admit our other guest. And as he's coming into the studio, Kathy, just give me a second here. I'll just make a brief announcement here. As he works his way into the studio, WPVM's mission is to foster a community through programming that cultivates dialogue to inform and entertain. The station provides the medium for artists, businesses, community leaders, and nonprofits to share their voice on live radio, also on Facebook Live. Listeners are invited to help support WPVM's efforts by making a tax-deductible contribution. They can do so by going to the website, wpvmfm.org, and looking at the donate options on the upper right-hand side. It's next my pleasure to introduce my next two guests, and they are Kathy Fisher and also Joel. We haven't met yet, but Joel Perkins. Is that right? Okay, Joel, can you hear? Perkin, I'm sorry. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine.
Okay, great. Well, welcome aboard, guys. Before we begin, you can also wave to all your fans and friends in Facebook world. So if everyone's watching, great.
Facebook.
Okay. And thank you very much for being my guest on this special edition of Blaine's World Show. I should mention, in terms of backgrounds, let's see if I can find them. They are somewhere here. That, Kathy this is her second production at Tryon Little Theater, which mentioned, I forgot the name of the show. To mention the name of the show, Kathy, is
I Love You, You're Perfect, Now Change.
Okay, that's a great title to a great show. And Kathy, this is our second production at Tryon, the first being Calendar Girls in 2016. I Love You, You Now Perfect, Now Change is her first musical at Tryon Little Theater, though she is no stranger to the stage, having begun acting in Rome, Italy. We'll talk about that. Then continuing in New York in both off-Broadway and off-Broadway productions, as well as performance of musicals and straight plays in community theater productions throughout Westchester County. In terms of Joel's background, he's director of the upcoming production, I Love You, You're Perfect, Now Change. And he's been acting and directing since the mid-90s and has been with Tryon Little Theater since 2014. During the day, he's an instructional coach at Blue Ridge High School in Greenville County, South Carolina. He lives in Landrum. And so the question I asked both you the first time I meet somebody in the theater is, Kathy, what was your first play you ever did? Do you recall?
It was Camelot in high school. I played Guinevere.
Oh, okay.
And I remember someone came backstage after the show and said, "You should be on Broadway."
Yeah, but you had never acted before?
I had in little plays.
No, that's where we want to go. Do you remember the very first role you ever did?
No. Maybe, yeah.
Just
All in the Night Visitors in first grade, maybe.
Well, I want you to remember this, Joel, because I have this great idea for a fundraiser for Tryon. I've had this for a lot of people, is that what I think we should do is everybody should do their first role. You know, like, do you have like that one you did in first grade? Do you have a tape of that somewhere?
No.
But tell me, Joel, wouldn't that be the greatest? They don't have to do the whole show. They just do 5 minutes of it. But
That would be much fun.
Wouldn't that be fun? Everybody would do their first role. So you could get a chance, Kathy, to recreate this, and we could have it live, tape it in for posterity. Everybody come see the very first role. Joel, same question too. Have you acted all your life or just got into it?
Well, my first play that I was in, and I have no memory of this, but when I was in kindergarten, my parents had a picture of me standing on the stage in the cafetorium at school, wearing this little like Hawaiian shirt and a little lei and little khaki shorts. I have no memory of that, but photographic evidence exists. Much like Kathy, I'm like, yeah, I know I did something in elementary school. So maybe we can just do a freeze of ourselves, the
Well,
whatever pose from our pictures.
well, I don't know if you folks have it, but was there a copy of this production?
No, this is way back in the early 80s before everyone had video.
Okay. But think about that. I want to do that for all theaters. Everybody would just get a chance to recreate it. So forget the picture, but you'd actually have to do the whole role as a little 5-year-old. After that role, did you continue acting?
Not until college. I took a public speaking course as a requirement for my undergrad,
Right.
and I was a chemistry major. And the professor said, by the way, I'm directing this musical, Hello Dolly, at the local community theater. I'll give you extra credit if you come audition. And so I auditioned and I got the dance lead in the show. So,
Had you ever done any dancing?
I had done a little bit of dancing through high school, but community theater gives people a lot of opportunities that they wouldn't have in other places.
So is that fantastic? So in that role, then you got the bug?
Yes, absolutely. I haven't stopped since.
Okay, and that's very exciting. So having stopped since you continued acting since then as well?
Yes.
Okay. And the question I'll ask you, and then we'll go back to Kathy, but I always wonder when I meet a director, especially for the first time, because you're directing this current play, is that correct?
That's right.
And you directed some other stuff as well?
I have. This is the first musical I've ever directed. I directed some children's shows, elementary and high school. This is my third show here at Tryon that I'm directing. I did Almost Maine, which is just a wonderful, very popular show.
I know it, sure.
The Humans, a couple seasons
Okay,
ago.
I know that too. But here's the question I'll ask you, Joel, and do you have a preference now, acting or directing?
It is so hard to choose. There's such different things. I love being able to take on a role and figure it out and make it my own. But there's just nothing that can compare to surrounding yourself with talented, creative people who are all doing the same thing and working together toward a bigger goal. So I think it really depends on how much energy I have to memorize lines.
Because, yeah, I was going to say that's the truth. A lot of folks tell me, Joel, when I speak to them, a lot of them have been actors and become directors. And Kathy, of course, knows this. The real truth is, like you said, that as director, you don't have to memorize lines, so the truth comes out all these years later.
Absolutely.
So now, do you still act in some stuff, or you'll be going between the two things, acting and directing?
In fact, just literally the weekend before we auditioned for this show, I finished up acting in Light in the Piazza over in downtown Tryon.
Oh, I would have loved to have seen it. Is there a separate theater than the other little theater?
We actually performed in the park. We have a company. There's a separate company in town called Shakespeare and Friends, and they perform outdoors in the park amphitheater.
Okay, you'll have to tell me more about it off the air, because I'd love to find out about that group as well. But
Absolutely.
what a beautiful show. What was your role in that?
I was the Italian father, Signor Naccarelli.
Okay, great show. Did you see that, Kathy? Did you get to see it?
Yes, I saw it. He was great.
And so, Kathy, the same thing too, from when you were 5 years old to progress. Talk a little bit about your role in theater over the years.
You're directing that to me?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes.
Can you
I'm
tell
sorry.
me the
Talk
question
about
again?
how you got from your 5-year-old role to where you are now. Other shows and other stuff you've done from a theatrical standpoint.
Oh, okay. Well, after I studied music in college and moved to New York City, hoping to make it as an actress, and quickly found that without a resume, you don't get too far too fast. And this is leading into the Rome story. I was in a relationship with an architectural historian who was doing his dissertation in Rome, and he said, "Why don't you come? And there's 2 English-speaking theaters here." And then I went to Rome and got my acting start. And there was a got to act in a little theater from the 18th century, and a theater in a crypt of a church, and it was a great experience. And then I came back to New York and got my first acting job as a tap dancing cow. Needless to say, that's not on my resume, but
Oh, okay.
but then it went from there to off Broadway, one off Broadway show. It was a musical, and then summer stock and a tour of New York State and all different, and community theater throughout Westchester County.
Do you have a favorite role?
Laura in Glass Menagerie was one of my favorite roles, and I loved, as far as musicals, I loved Emma in Jekyll and Hyde.
Okay. Oh, wow. Hopefully I'll do that sometime. Yeah, great musical. Joel, same question. Do you have a favorite role that you ever did?
In terms of just roles that are so fun to play, we did Lend Me a Tenor here in Tryon a few years ago, and I just got to completely let go of everything and have zero shame on stage. So that was a lot of fun to do that. In terms of challenging roles, a few years back down in Greenville, I was with a company, and we did Charles Bush's Psycho Beach Party, and I played the main character's mother, so full drag, everything. And that was a huge challenge to figure that out, and it was so rewarding at the end.
Okay, I have to say I missed that one. I haven't seen that particular show yet. Somewhere down the line. And let's kind of segue into the show that you're doing, and let's see, it opens, I guess, next weekend. That's when people will see this. But that is, I was telling Kathy off the air, it's one of my all-time favorite shows. I Love You, You're Perfect, Now Change. How did Tryon choose that play?
Well, we, after taking most of, a season and a half off for everything, we were looking at what we wanted to bring back and how we wanted to start back. We came and reopened to the public, and we're looking at various shows. We're like, we need a comedy. We need something that's very well written, very tightly written. We need something that's got flexible casting, and we want something that's about reconnecting. And this show is all about the importance of relationships, and even the craziest and most the relationships that drive you the most crazy, they're also worth it. And we really wanted to have a show about reconnecting.
And Kathy, if you could, for the benefit of the people who don't know the show, could you maybe kind of give the Reader's Digest version what it's about? The Reader's Digest version of the show, what's it all about? For people who don't know.
What Joel said. It starts out with young love and evolves throughout the different relationships of marriage, having babies, and the older relationships. And there's a lot of comedic moments in it, and very touching moments too, as well.
And talk about your role in terms of, you were telling me again off the air that it traces the history of relationships, I guess. But there are 8 different actors in this show. Is that right?
Yeah.
Kathy? And what each of them have different roles to play? Is that it?
Oh yes. Purportedly there are 60 roles. I haven't counted them, but
oh, really? Wow.
I did count them. There's exactly 60.
60?
Really?
Yes.
So how many do you have, Kathy?
Maybe 10. I don't know.
And you told me that one of them you're typecast here as in one of the ones you're a 10-year-old. Is that correct? Is that typecast?
No, but that's a really fun little role. Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you prepare?
Bratty little 10-year-old.
Okay. So that's not you though, right? That you're not a bratty little 10-year-old.
Oh, well, sometimes.
Okay. But let me ask you this. I always give actors a lot of credit. How do you prepare for a show where you have more than one role? So you have, like I said, 5 different roles in this. How do you prepare for it?
The same way that you do for one role. I mean, but you do think about the individuality of each of them, and what is the subtext in the scene. And because the scenes are short, it's important that each scene has makes an impact. And it's just, what is the message? What is the message, and how can you convey that through
Hey,
your
Joel,
character?
Joel, talk a little bit about it in terms of the show. I recall seeing it at least once, maybe twice before, and I don't really think I saw it with. Is it possible that I didn't see it with 8 characters, 8 actors, maybe only 4? Is that possible?
Yeah, when the show was originally written, it was written for 4 actors in their 20s to play
Right.
all.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
So there's usually more doubling than that. And what I really wanted to bring in as many actors as I could for this, to get people back on stage who wanted to be back on stage. And I'm thrilled with how many actors we have. I'm thrilled with the amount of talent we have on the stage. They came right in, picked up the songs amazingly fast. There's all different styles of songs in here. There's 50s rock, tangos, there's a classical cantata.
Now, in terms of the music, is there live, or is you playing off the you're playing off music on this?
We have a live a piano player and a flutist.
I'm so excited because I don't know how, Kathy, you feel about it, or even Joel, you feel about it, but I have this personal hang up, and it's changing because all shows are now going away from live music. But I'm so excited you have to, even if you had a piano player, I don't know if you feel that way, but to me, it's so different than if you had just off the, what do they call it when it's off the, you have
Track.
Off the track. I'm so excited you have 2 musicians. Do you feel there's a difference?
I do, because I've sung with tracks and musicals, and there's nothing like live music.
Yet they say, Kathy, for the practice, the rehearsal, the tracks are very helpful. When you're learning the songs or singing to them, I guess the tracks are helpful. But people tell me, Joel, and I'll get your reaction on this, that as a performer, it's actually easier to play with a live orchestra than off a track. Do you feel that's true?
I do. Like Kathy, I've performed in shows where we've used tracks for the music. And there are some positives to it. You always know exactly how long anything's going to be. I know that I have exactly 53 seconds for this costume change before I need to get back on. It's never going to change. But yeah, not just having live music, but having a really good musician who can follow you, because the whole point of live theater is that it's never exactly the same twice. And I love having musicians who are also feeling that and working with us and creating all of that together to make it never the same twice.
Well, also the fact that I won't mention the local theaters that are doing this, there's also, unfortunately, there's an economic issue, and that's why I hear a lot of people going to tracks, because it's cheaper to do to have a track, I guess, than to have 2 live musicians. But I'm so excited you're doing that. Talk about Joel, just some of the songs in the show, because I was telling Kathy again off the air, but that I saw this when I first saw it. I had just gotten a divorce. I was in the dating stage. It was the most perfect show I've ever seen because I could relate to so much of it, And I'll actually turn to Kathy if we'll just give a hint to the one song that I think, Kathy, it's one of the early ones. You talk about a couple meeting each other for the first time, right? And they ask a series of questions, and you were telling me about that. Just talk a little bit about that one show, that one song.
You're talking about the golf?
Yeah, right. One of my favorite songs. Right.
Yeah. He's asking me if I play golf, and I pretend that I do when I really don't, and it's just it captures these blind dates where you have to sort of make up and pretend like you're what you think they want you to be. And
well, I'll lead you into the one line. Talks about, have you heard about the actor? And what's your line? Have you seen the film and describe the one actor?
He says, have you ever seen Caddyshack? And do you know the name? What was the name of that famous actor? And I'm just going, what?
But I just can't wait to see you know, sing that song, because it reminds me, Kathy, wouldn't that be the perfect line for an actor, you know, in general, like, you know, that guy, you know, that should be that, you know, describing an
All
actor.
singing.
Right, right.
Something
Or the
guy.
restaurant I'm going to be eating and try on, you know, that place, you know, it just describes everything. And Joel, the all-time favorite in the show, and you can just describe the scene a little bit, where they're at the movies, one of my other favorite all-time songs, and describe that song for the benefit of people who haven't seen it. Joel, if you would.
Oh yeah, it's one of the only scenes in the show that there is no actual dialogue. It's all sung. And it's a man and a woman on a date, and he's agreed to let her pick the movie, and it is completely the movie he does not want to see. And so the entire song is about how this, you know, I'm never letting the woman ever pick the movie
Sure.
again.
Right.
And, you know, there's some dramatic tension and a little bit of growth, shall we say, during the song.
But just as you're describing it, I'm laughing at her. I can't wait to see it performed, because it's so contemporary to anybody, you know. And the guy, again, I don't know the actor yet, but the guy who plays it just must be a classic song for anybody to sing, you know. And talk a little bit, again, I don't know a lot of the Trian performers at this point in time, but if you can, Joel, give a shout out to some of the other members that you cast aside from Kathy.
So we've got a great mix of people in the show. In addition to Kathy, who's done a show with us before, we've got Lori Corda, who's done a lot of shows with TLT, Brenda Craig, who's done several shows with us, her husband Sam, who's never done a theater show before. We've got Tina Green, who's anyone in Trian who's been to a theater show knows who Tina Green is. Very well known around here. Alex Tapp, who's done a lot of shows with us. And then we've got two people, Lee Mangum and Jim Powell, who are brand new to the area. One moved from the Georgia area and one came from Michigan. And they're brand new here, and they came to auditions, their first show in the area. So we've got a great mix of veterans and new people, and it's wonderful.
The auditions, did you have a good turnout for them?
Not as good as I'd hoped.
Right.
A lot of people, you know, called me up and said, you know, we're just not ready to come into a theater space yet with the way COVID is still going. But everyone in the cast, all the production crew, backstage, people taking tickets, people who clean up, everyone is fully vaccinated here. And we will be taking COVID protocols during performances.
And talk about the show itself too. If people want to see it, are masks required?
Yes, we are going to require masks in the theater space, except when you're eating or drinking from our concessions. And we are capping attendance at 50% of our normal capacity, so people have the opportunity to spread out.
I'm so glad Kathy was telling me about the show, and just somehow, I'll give a shout out to Kathy, that she does what I'd like all people in theater to do, but she was promoting the show, and it was on her Facebook page, and I saw it, and I said, I got to see this show, you know. So I was so glad Kathy, but what Kathy did, Joel, I thought it was so good that she not only put it on her Facebook page, but she sent me an invitation separately, you know. And I contend in another life, I was a marketing professor. I contend marketing is high touch, not high tech, you know. And you have to tell people about what you're in, invite them to come. So the minute I got that invitation, I couldn't believe, Kathy, the timing was so perfect, you know. I said, I'm there. On the show itself, so when's the run start again? And let's talk about getting tickets.
Yeah, we open September 16th, so that's this upcoming Thursday, and we run through the 26th, so 2 weekends. And because we're cutting the attendance, we're limiting the attendance to half capacity, we added a Saturday matinee. So we're doing Thursday, Friday, Saturday evenings, and Saturday, Sunday matinees, both weekends. So a total of 10 shows.
And I'm so glad that Kathy told me about it, because I saw the Sunday matinee was already sold out. Even the Saturday show I'm going to, it's pretty, you know, well, tickets are going great. So thank you, Kathy, for the invite. Let me ask you, Kathy, what Joel just said in terms of, is that tough for you now, going to be doing two shows in a day, you know, a matinee and a night?
I'm sure, yeah, it's going to be challenging, but the show is so uplifting, you know, to perform. It's just so much fun. So I don't think that's going to be any problem.
Okay. And Joel, the same thing too. Have you ever, I guess you've done shows where you have an afternoon and night show at the same time?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
It takes a toll, but like Kathy said, when you really love a show, when you're really into it, as you're performing the show, you don't feel that tiredness or that fatigue. It's not until after the second show that you go home and you're just like, oh my gosh, what just happened to me?
Well, especially for you folks, it's I give you a lot of credit. You're going to Saturday afternoon, Saturday night, and Sunday afternoon. That's a lot of performances in a short period of time. What about also, have you ever done this, Joel? And I'll ask Kathy the same question as well. As you're doing a show, again, it's just amazing to me that people can do it. Have you ever been working on another show at the same time?
I have done a little bit of that where I started rehearsing the next show before the show I was in closed. That is really hard. It's getting harder now that I'm getting a little up there in age, and memorizing is not working quite so well for me. But yeah, I've done it a couple times. I don't recommend it to most people. And it's one of those, you've got to have that youthful energy to really pull that off.
Kathy, same thing too. I guess when you were younger, you did that a little bit, where you were doing like one show in summer stock and then working on another one.
Yeah, summer stock in Reading, Pennsylvania. We were doing, rehearsing, I was doing 1776 and then rehearsing for The Sound of Music. It was like, oh my God. Yeah. I was so tired.
I was going to say a little dissimilar shows, not the same kind of show. But yeah, boy, I'd love somebody to do 1776 again. That's a great show too.
Yeah.
As well. But yeah, that's just must be a big challenge to do the two at once. Joel, I know some people are actually doing three, at once. They're doing a reading, in rehearsal, doing another one. And
I do not know how they can do that.
Especially back to Kathy, when you were doing those roles, but to actually do a show where you're doing a lot of different, like you said, this show, you're doing 5 different roles then. What's the most in this show, Joel? What's the most number of roles anybody does? Do you know?
I think 10 is the most anybody's doing.
Yeah.
So they've got a lot on their plate, and these actors have really stepped up and pushed it and found. Last night we had another run through. It was just so good. They're finding new bits, new pieces, new aspects of their characters, and really drawing those out. And I mean, I've been watching the show, rehearsing for 6 weeks now, and I was still laughing out loud at things that are happening on stage, because they're just doing such a great job pulling meaning out of this text.
And even as you're talking about it, I have a smile on my face, because again, I can't wait to see this. And Kathy had told me about it. I had to get tickets right away. I just couldn't miss it. And in the background, are those other shows you've been involved in?
These are other shows that TLT has done. I'm at the theater right now, so.
And those are shows that it's done. Let me ask you, in the remaining time, do either of you know what's upcoming for Tryon Little Theater?
Yes, our next show is called Baskerville, and it's Ken Ludwig's reinterpretation of the Sherlock Holmes story, Hound of the Baskervilles. And it's done much the same style as 39 Steps, where you get 5 actors playing 60 different characters, all just like change a scarf, change a hat. And somehow Ken Ludwig, because he's a comedy genius, managed to take Hound of the Baskervilles and turn it into a laugh out loud comedy.
Okay.
And in the winter,
and auditions are next week for that.
Okay.
And there's more information on our website, tltinfo.org, for people who want to look at that.
And you had one other show I think you were going to mention?
Yes, in the winter we have a show called Smoke on the Mountain, which takes place inside an Appalachian church, and it's all filled with heritage music.
Okay.
And then say it again?
No, very exciting. So some interesting stuff coming up.
Yes.
And again, I'll ask you to repeat it, or Kathy, whoever wants to. If folks want to find out more information about Tryon Little Theater, they go to the website, which was what?
tltinfo.org.
Okay. And they can also, you're on Facebook as well?
We are on Facebook.
Okay.
And you can also call 828-859-2466.
Okay. And we'll have you do that again. Kathy, repeat that number.
828-859-2466.
Okay. I'd like to thank both of you for being my guests the second half hour on the Blaine's World Show. I certainly
Thank
look
you.
forward. I certainly look forward to seeing the show in a couple of weeks. It's really got me
Yeah.
psyched. And what I'd like to do is I'm going to sign off, guys. And if you could just stay with me for 1 second afterward, we can wrap up. But I'd like to thank everybody for listening to the Blaine's World Show. We're here Wednesdays typically on WPVM 103.7 FM. Also, you're watching the special edition on the Blaine's World Show on Facebook Live. And we hope to see you real soon.